Many organizations have been in the spotlight throughout Detroit's long history, but none with as powerful an impact as the Detroit Athletic Club. From its national and local influence in the development of amateur athletics to its involvement in the creation of the American auto industry, the DAC has been the critical fulcrum from which so much of what is quintessential Detroit was born and nurtured. Founded in 1887, the DAC was created by a group of dedicated young Detroiters caught up in the amateur athletics movement sweeping the country. Striving to manifest the ideals of competition and brotherhood, they built a simple but elegant clubhouse. They also created an athletic center along Woodward Avenue, second to none in the city at a time long before professional sports. Member Frank Eddy helped found an important national sports group, the Amateur Athletic Union. Almost immediately, the DAC became the hub of amateur athletics in Detroit, with championship teams and outstanding individual athletes from baseball and cricket to track and field, from high-wheel cycling to football and later basketball. Besides winning national baseball championships in 1890 and 1892, local baseball legends like Sam Thompson, George Codd, and John Kelsey led the various DAC teams. The club also fielded an excellent football squad that took on numerous collegiate teams, including U of M and Notre Dame. In an era before professional football, the Deltas were considered the first organized gridiron team in Detroit. The DAC's football field was so outstanding, U of M often hosted their home games at the club. On the Cinder Oval, the DAC produced the Four Horsemen, a group of members who all held national track and field titles. One of the horsemen, John Owen, became the first sprinter to break the 10-second mark in the 100-yard dash, a record that stood for over 30 years. Harry Jewett soon surpassed Owen as the club's greatest sprinter, and he became a national title holder in the 220-yard dash. Ted Luce won 2 national pole vaulting titles, while Fred Ducharme was a national hurdles champion. During those heady days, there were never more than 400 members of the DAC, but all were committed to the spirit of athletics and to serving our nation. When the Spanish-American War began, more than 20 members volunteered for the Michigan Naval Brigade and helped man the auxiliary cruiser USS Yosemite. Seeing action in the waters off Cuba, the Yosemite proved valiant during several minor engagements, earning well-deserved honors with the Navy. As the 19th century rolled into the 20th, many members lost interest in amateur sports and focused on business and the growing automobile industry. The club nearly closed in the early years of the new century, except for the efforts of auto supplier John Kelsey, who personally funded it for several years. He would be one of only 2 men to serve as president of both the original and the modern DAC. It was during this era that the club continually produced local and state championship basketball teams, led by one of Michigan's first great Jewish athletes, Jacob Mazer. The idea to redevelop the DAC into more of a private social organization took hold during informal discussions at the old Pontchartrain Bar. By late 1912, a group led by automobile advertising man Charlie Hughes was organizing to move the club to downtown Detroit. On January 4, 1913, 109 leading business figures signed articles of association and created a framework of committees to revitalize the club at a new location. The group was led by many synonymous with Detroit, from Henry Joy and Hugh Chalmers to Abner Larned and Walter Briggs, to name just a few. They hired famed architect Albert Kahn to design a new modern clubhouse that Kahn would later call his monument to the city. Construction went smoothly throughout 1914, and the building, with many unique features and a gorgeous exterior, was completed in less than 13 months. The magnificent Madison Avenue Clubhouse opened to great fanfare in April of 1915 with a weekend of celebrations. So spectacular was the beauty of Kahn's finished clubhouse that the official opening became a major event in Detroit history. A national magazine boasted that the DAC was an expression of Detroit's greatness. Inside the clubhouse, only the finest detailing and fixtures were used, often created by the nation's leading artisans. The unique fourth floor featured a natatorium with a swimming pool and a full-size gymnasium. Entering the building, members were greeted by a grand staircase and main lobby of exquisite detail. The main dining room on the second floor featured a magnificent ceiling. By the time of its opening in 1915, there were just over 2,000 members, and the club soon became the elite gathering place in Detroit. With nearly 700 of those members involved in the young automobile business, the club quickly became the center of the nation's car industry. More than 200 firms and 33 of the country's leading manufacturing companies were led by members. Incredibly, the DAC membership controlled 92% of the entire world's automobile production in 1915. Clearly, the club was critical to the emergence of Detroit's auto industry. In the ensuing 95 years, the club and its clubhouse have stood the test of time, producing industrial and military leaders during World War I and surviving the Great Depression. During World War II, the DAC became the general headquarters of the country's arsenal of democracy, the industrial complex led by DAC auto leaders who turned the U.S. into an economic powerhouse. Over its long span in the city, the club has hosted numerous world leaders, from kings and presidents to generals and international political leaders. During a visit to Detroit, sitting U.S. President Woodrow Wilson posed with Henry Ford and Detroit Mayor Oscar Marx in front of the club. Nearly 2,000 people, including national and international dignitaries, gathered in the summer of 1916 for a grand panoramic with Wilson. The president later attended a special luncheon inside the clubhouse. Other famous visitors included Teddy Roosevelt and Charles Lindbergh, and in recent years, Gerald Ford and George Bush. The DAC's connection to the entertainment culture began immediately after opening. As performers visited Detroit's hotspots, the club was able to lure them to entertain members, drawing people like W.C. Fields, Harry Houdini, Amelia Earhart, George M. Cohen, and Will Rogers. Famed jazz-era band leader and club music director Gene Goldkett got his break at the DAC. The club's great sports traditions continued through the amazing achievements of Olympic athletes like divers Clarence and Betty Pinkston, Dick Denninger and Gene Stunyo, Olympic gold medal swimmer Clark Scholes, boxer Chuck Davey, and bowler Joe Paulus were all longtime members. Prompted by Charlie Hughes, members of the DAC formed a consortium in the 1920s to buy the Vancouver Cougars and turn them into the Detroit Red Wings. Later, they built Olympia Stadium for the team. In the 1930s, DAC members, led by G.A. Richards, purchased an Ohio football team and turned it into the Detroit Lions, winning an NFL championship within 2 years. Throughout its history, every owner of the Detroit Tigers, except for two, have been DAC members. Club presidents Walter Briggs, Frank Navin, and John Kelsey would form a long-standing Tigers partnership, and today, member Mike Ilitch heads the team, now located across the street from the clubhouse. Internally, DAC sports focused on squash, handball, bowling, swimming, and the unique Beavers group formed in 1919. Their brand of swimming basketball remains a unique blend of competition and camaraderie. Throughout its history, the DAC created its own cigar label, being one of the largest purveyors of cigars outside of New York, bottled its own soft drinks, and created a world of culinary delights without equal in Detroit. Following World War II, the club thrived, as did Detroit and the automobile business. But as the city slowly fell on hard times, the DAC began to lose its appeal and came close to leaving Detroit, instead choosing to remain committed to downtown. Today, the DAC is a bastion of diversity, with leadership across all aspects of Detroit's civic, business, cultural, and educational communities. And as Detroit rebounded in the 1990s, the DAC was again at the forefront as one of the best private clubs in the country. Then in 1997, members supported a restoration effort focused on the interior details of their clubhouse, a commitment that led to a $43 million restoration program over more than 10 years. From the day the clubhouse first opened, members began donating paintings, sculptures, and other fine art to the DAC, while the club's leaders also set about expanding its outstanding art collection. Besides this passion for art, one of the other core values that sets the club apart is its devotion to honoring tradition. Today, members swim in the pool where Tarzan legend Johnny Weissmuller once set an indoor freestyle record. They play basketball in a gym where Teddy Roosevelt was honored. They stay in overnight rooms where famed American golfer Walter Hagen once lived. They annually sponsor several important athletic awards and hold a nationally recognized boxing exhibition each fall. They pursue friendly competition through one of the largest private bowling programs in the U.S. Today, they dine in the finest restaurant in the city, The Grill, and sip on a nationally known drink, The Last Word, created in the club's tap room. Recognized as one of the top private clubs in the country through the annual Platinum Club Awards, the DAC is home to 3,500 members who are truly what legendary DAC President Hugh Chalmers once called Detroit's active citizens. A national leader in the development of amateur athletics and the engine which drove the country's automobile industry, today the Detroit Athletic Club remains at the center of the community, a fulcrum for leadership and tradition.